Sasuke, Rinnegan, Sharingan from his final battle with Naruto. So this is a close-up portrait of him. Landscape page for this one. It would work portrait as well, you'd just probably lose some of the shoulders, that's all. So, center point of my page about here, we're probably a bit higher up, just a little bit above halfway. We're going to start with the Rinnegan eye, and we will go diagonal. And it kind of changes direction, curves over the eye shape here. So it's like a gradual curve that way. And then we get that Naruto sort of spike that they have down there. And then the bottom eye is just across to where we started, bottom eyelid. So normally in Naruto though, they thicken up the top eyelid line. They just make it a heavier line, you know, it's just darker kind of. So you just go over it again, once or twice. And normally this little spike can be sort of a bit darker as well. Maybe sometimes there's that at the front as well, like an extra eyelid line. So the Rinnegan inside. The Rinnegan is surprisingly tricky to draw because it's like a load of circles. It's like a bullseye, right? So if you start with the pupil, just there. So then we got to go around a couple of times. Now, if you've like a compass or stencils for circles that will help you, you can use those as well. But if not, you can just try and freehand around. So we'll take our time, right? And if you're worried about touching the top, you know, you can go as close as you want. So it kind of looks like a normal iris, right? But we got to keep going, right? So we go again. And we're trying to keep it even as we go around, which is easier said than done. Okay, 2, not so bad. And the next one will probably disappear underneath his eyelids. So it'll go down. And you kind of have to kind of pretend like you keep going. And then it'll like re-emerge just here. You do that again. You kind of just pretend you're going around and then it'll come out somewhere here. And I think there is actually another one right in there. So the Rinnegan, so he has kind of like a Sharingan thing going on, and there's like extra ones. So there's like one here, so I'll just do a dot for each one first. So I think this is the orientation of them. Then it looks like there's one here. And then it looks like there's another one just kind of disappearing under his eyelid under there. And these have little sort of tails, basically. They look like sort of tadpoles or commas, right? So a little spike. And they seem to go sort of clockwise, right? They go like around that way. Looks like all of them do. They kind of curve that way. And this is from the last battle, so he's got like some stress lines sort of underneath his eye here. Just like kind of bags underneath his eye. And then we have an eyelid line just above, just for the skin of his eye. And then a sharp, thin, black eyebrow that just goes that way. It's kind of like a check mark at first, but you want to thicken up the front, right? So you want to just add a space on top of this that you can sort of color in, you know. And they're just black, so if you're using pencil, they'd be just heavily shaded with your pencil. Okay, so then the other eye, right? So you measure this eye, you come over that distance, and then you do the same shape again. right? So we come over about eye width. You could fit an eye in here, like the width of this eye goes in there. And then we go up and over again. So you're just carving it over again. Okay, same sort of thing. Doesn't have to be the exact same. So you just go up, and then we have the Naruto sort of spiking on the corner of the eye. And then the bottom eyelid line comes over there. I'll just thicken this one up a little bit more. So bottom, we go Sharingan. So we're just going like a normal, it's like the second line of the Rinnegan eye that we did. You know, it's about that size. It's about the size of that one, see? But the same. And then the pupil, just in the middle. Sort of about the same level as that. And then we have the Sharingan again. So it's kind of like, sometimes there's a circle around it and other times there isn't. So we'll do the commas, like the Tomei sort of signs, right? This and this. You could leave it like that, but normally they have an extra little, like a section like that in around. So it's up to you kind of what way you want to do that, I suppose. Okay, so his eyelid line above. And we do have some sort of stress lines and stuff around in there again. Then we have a sharp eyebrow. A lot of this side is underneath some of his fringe, his hair spikes, so some of that stuff disappears. And then across like that. You just color it in black or shade it really as dark as your pencil will go. So for his nose, all they do is like a little sort of line like that around, and then they leave a big gap and they have his nostrils just down here. That's all they do for the nose. Then the mouth, so it's one of those sort of broken lines, right? So what I mean is, we sort of start under this sort of section and it's kind of downturned. Like that kind of, and then they leave a gap and they go across. So you don't have to leave the gap, but it's the way it is in the show, so it kind of looks kind of cool, I think. And then his bottom lip, just there. And then the chin down there. Right, so his jaw then curves up that way. It's kind of like a wine glass shape. Goes up there. And then we have all those hair spikes, right? So we get some fringe sections. So you just come around his forehead, sort of, just like this. Just triangles, really, spikes sort of hanging down. And then he has the long ones on the side. We'll just finish the jaw off in there. And then another spike down here, and it goes right back up past his ears. Do, 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 do. Right, we can see a little bit of the ear just kind of sticking out here. And here as well. And then we have spikes on this side. And they get kind of bigger as they go up, and they'll go off the top of my page, just up there. And on this side, we have them this way. And then neck. And then we get like his collar sort of coming this way. And then we have, I think, more of his hair just going down behind his neck here. It's kind of dark here, so I'm not, it's black, so it must be his hair. And then say like neck muscles, and then his collarbone going each way. So those neck muscles always go into the collarbone. And then so the big collar then just coming around here. Right, so they're coming from the back of his head. And then, so it's kind of like different either side. So we've got this sort of zipper thing, and they only draw it like this. They kind of just do it bumpy, kind of a simpler way of drawing it. There's another collar line there. This side's different. So we have it folding inwards first from here, and then it goes down, and then we have the zipper sort of bumpy on the inside, and then there's the finishing line just there. And then shoulders. So a male shoulders is the width of his face, right? His skull. So you go out about that much, and that's where it's kind of like the same length as your collarbone, basically. So male shoulders are 3 heads across. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So like roughly that. That's a rough guide, just if you're wondering. Okay. So that's how you know. If you're ever wondering how much shoulders. Females are like 2.5. It's just an average. It's not always the same. And then I'll just scratch up his face. And they just do sort of these pieces of dirt, or like marks from the fight, or the fight's a plural that he's been in up to this point. Sasuke, semi-adult, looking serious. Hope it's helpful. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Bye.